And today I want to talk about day and time. I know we've probably spoken with Benika and maybe Mama Shelley a little bit about this, but yeah, I figured it's something that I haven't put out on the channel, and it's a big awakening because a lot of people in Africa, or who at least speak the dialects in Africa or the tribes in Africa, they will relate to a lot of what we're going to discuss today. And it is like natural to them, the issues we're going to discuss today. We're not even teaching them anything new. We're just making them realize who they are and what they have, that came from Zambi or Tatan Zambi, yes. All right, so we'll talk about Siku is day and Sa is time. And we're going to look at what the scriptures say about day and time. So in the book of Genesis, start out with Genesis chapter 1, verse 3. Of course, we know this is a story of creation. And Zambi say, let there be light. So on this first day, he's creating light. Then we see in verse 5 that I've highlighted in green over here, after he has created the light and he has divided it from the darkness, he says, and the evening and the morning were the first day. So two components, the evening and the morning, made up the first day. Then we go to verse 6 over there. And now he's creating the firmament, which is the sky, and the sea. So the waters above and the waters below. And again, you look down at verse 8. After he's created all that, he says, and the evening and the morning. And now he calls it the second day. So we are seeing a repetition in what comprises a day. A day is comprised of an evening, what we call in today's terms, the night. And then it's composed of also the second half, which is daylight or day hours. Anyway, let's go to verse 9. Verse 9, he starts to create. He says, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place. And now he says, let the dry land appear. So he's creating the land. And I'll jump over. That was verse 9 down here. So I jump on that day, he's creating the land. And then on verse 13, he summarizes it and says, and the evening and the morning were the third day. One thing I know from reading the scriptures is when Tatan Zambi wants us to really get something, he repeats it. Because we're just like little children. How many times do I have to repeat to my own children to do something or not to do something? It's the same. So now for the third time, he's repeating to us the order of a day is evening and morning. Carrying on verse 14, something interesting is going to happen here. Zambi says, let there be lights, plural, in the sky or in the heavens. To divide, the purpose of the lights is to divide the day from the night. So in essence, he is dividing the evening and the morning. And he's going to use this lights that he's going to put up there. Okay? And let them be for signs, for seasons, for days and years. Interestingly, I didn't see the word weeks or months over there. Interestingly, if you pay attention to this verse that is talking about verse 14, he says, let there be lights. So what lights is he putting there? And we see, we know he put the moon, he put the sun, and even the stars. Okay? Because it says here in verse 16, and God and Zambi made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, which is the sun, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. So now the question becomes, when we're talking about time, can we use, number one, the moon to determine time? I don't think so. Can we use the sun to determine time? I believe so. And we'll get to that in a bit more detail. And can we use the stars in the heaven to tell time? I don't think so. At least not that I know of. Okay, maybe if there's a way, but not that I know of. So we'll get to that. That was, now he's doing this on the fourth day. And again, he repeats on verse 19, and the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Okay, so we know fourth day is to do with governance and things like that, or the number 4. So let's go to verse 20. He's going to create something for the fifth day. And he says, and Nzambi said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that has life. Right? So he's creating the creatures now. The birds that fly up in the sky and things like that. And he creates also the creatures that will move, every living creature and even the sea creatures. They're being told to be fruitful and multiply. And again, verse 23, evening and morning, the fifth day. I mean, Nzambi is like just laying it all out very simply, you know. This is how you count a day. You have an evening, and then you have daytime. Verse 24, he creates things on the sixth day. Now he creates the earth. He creates creatures on the earth. Let the earth bring forth the living creature after the living creatures after his kind, cattle and creeping things and beasts of the earth after his kind, and it was so. So that's in verse 24. And then in verse 26, it creates man. Let us make man in our image. And then he gives him dominion over the fish, the cattle that he has just created, and all those things. And you jump to verse 31. Again, he repeats what he has repeated for the 5 days before. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Okay. Let me point out something actually that I just forgot. Well, I'll come to it. So what have we seen so far? Evening and morning make up a day. Evening and morning make up a day. The day starts with the evening. The day ends after the daytime. That's pretty much the order that we've seen here. All right, now let's go ahead and welcome to everybody who's joined. We're talking about day and time today. Now let's go ahead and look at the seventh day. So now in verse 1 here, it says, thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. That happened as of day 6. But now on the seventh day, Nzambi ended his work, which he had made, and he rested. He rested on the seventh day. So when it says the seventh day, he rested during the evening and the daytime, because that's what a whole day is. You know, it's like if you have a game like soccer, if you have a football match, you have a first half and you have a second half. When you have a day, the first half is the evening or the night. You have 12 hours. Then the second half is the daylight hours. And that makes it 24 hours. And this is why we're saying it is the sun that we use to tell time. When the sun sets, we know the evening or the night is beginning. You cannot look up to the sky and see a moon and say now it is nighttime. No, sometimes you look up in the sky during the middle of the day, you'll see a small moon, you know. So the moon doesn't tell us time, but the sun helps us tell time. So when the sun sets, the day starts. the next day starts. And now let's take a look at time. How do we tell time? That's the days. Plain, clear, Zambi showed us how to label the days. Now let's look at time. Before I actually get into time, let me give you a summary here for the days of the week. Sorry about that. So I hope we have other people, non-Kenyans, to also give us in the discussion how they number words or letters. So here for us in Swahili, the number one is moja, okay? But we have some communities, especially among the 9 Swahili communities in East Africa, or 9 tribes. We have some of them who use the word mosi, which is, I think, what is also used in Kikongo for number one. And day is Juma, okay? So when you combine moja, you say with Juma, you say Juma mosi, and that would be your fast day, okay? Goes with the numbers. Mbili is Swahili for 2, but we change it and we say Jumapili of the second day, or the second day. Tatu is 3, and so on and so forth. But look at this, interestingly, when you get to the 6th day here, the Arabs found a way to change what we called the 6th day. And they introduced an Arabic word. This Al-Hamisi is an Arabic word. And it is the Arabic word for the day of congregation. If you notice, this is when they go to the mosques, for example. At lunchtime on Fridays, Muslims usually have a time where they congregate in the mosque. So the Arab influence, especially when they were interacting with the locals in East Africa, they learned some Swahili words. They gave us some Arabic words. I believe this is when this happened, and we lost what I think would have been, not sure, but I think it would have been Juma Sita, based on how all this line up. And then for the 7th day, they did the same thing. They introduced another Arabic word instead of what would have been either Juma Saba or what I believe is actually Sabato. Sabato is actually the word for the 7th day, because you can see the word 7, the name for 7 is Saba. So remember, a day has 24 hours from sunset, when you have the evening, to the following sunset. So if you're saying Jumamosi, you're talking about Saturday evening, for example, like those in Southern Africa or those in Kenya right now. It's already like, almost 8 o'clock in Kenya, for example. So 8 p.m., what we call 8 p.m., right? But really, it's almost 2 or the second hour, 2 hours after sunset, because sunset was probably around 6 o'clock. So anyway, now let's look at time. That's on the days. Let's look at time, okay? Some people say a clock is always right 2 times a day. I think that's nonsense. I want to humbly submit that that is nonsense. We think it is correct 2 times a day because we are not using the sun. If I showed you, for example, this clock down here in my image, you would probably read it like most of us do and say it is 4:40, right? It is 4:40, but you cannot tell me whether it is 4:40 in the day or in the night. So when we say that it is right twice a day, we are subscribing to confusion. And Zambi is not a creator of confusion. He has order, right? And what order did he give us? He said, you have to look at the sun. If you told me this is what the clock says, if I told my son, go tell me what the clock says, and he's a little boy, he doesn't know how to read time, and he comes and tells me, this is where the hands are, I would look outside. If I see sunlight, then I will say it is 4:40 during the day, which would mean it's in the afternoon, what we call the afternoon. Or if it was early in the morning, I would say it's early in the morning, at 4:40, what we call after midnight. But that is an incorrect way of reading this. Take a look at this scripture here from the book of Matthew. This is a parable where Isaiah or Jesus has gone and given a parable about a guy who hired different workers at different times of the day and was going to pay them different amounts of money. But the point I want you to focus on is, let's look at verse 20 here. He went about the third hour and saw others standing in the idle marketplace. Then later on, again, he went about the 6th, the 9th, the 11th hour. Okay, let's say you look at this clock here, the one down here with an X, and you say, this man who owned a vineyard went about the third hour. If I look at this clock and I see the number third, I'm going to look at 3 here. Now, if it's 3 and it said morning, it doesn't make sense that this owner, this master, would go to hire laborers in his vineyard in the morning, in the third hour, which is what we call 3 a.m. This is why this clock is incorrect, even if we use it all around the world. If he went back again at the 6th hour, so he's going back at 6 a.m., and then at 9 a.m., the 9th hour, and then at 11 a.m., something doesn't add up there, especially that first one about the third hour. What is the correct way? Exactly how we read time in Africa. Here in Swahili, I'm showing you how we read time. So you start down here. You may have noticed by now the 6th and the 12th are interchanged from this. When the sun sets, that's called the 12th hour. So if this guy went to hire somebody at the third hour, either the sun sets or the sun rises here. He went in the morning. They're telling us what is happening with the sun. The morning is when you have the sun rise. So he went in the third hour here. In Africa, when we say saa tatu, tatu is the number for 3, it's what in the English language we refer to as 9 a.m. But it's really the third hour. The third hour. That makes sense because it's a third hour after sunrise. And then he went later on at the 6th hour, which would be midday, what we call midday. And then he went again at the 9th hour, which is like 3 p.m. So you look at the word, the number 9, and you read it like it is written, the 9th hour, or the 6th hour, or the 3rd hour. That's how we read time. If you ask somebody, I'm sure we might have some people on the call from Kenya, or even those who are in Africa elsewhere. I'd like to hear your thoughts and comments about this, but this is how we read time. In fact, I give credit to a lot of us from Africa because, whenever you're reading time, you're maybe using this clock, but you're speaking in this language. When it's, 9 a.m., what we call 9 a.m., you say it's 3 or the 3rd hour. And that is exactly how the scriptures relate. So when they say Christ was crucified in the third hour or the ninth hour, you have to look at the 3 or the 9 on the clock like this. All right. Here's another one. It's not a trick question. Same time that I was showing that first clock, it's about 4:40. But then if you ask somebody in Kenya, what time is it? They will say it's the 10th hour and 40 minutes, or there's 20 minutes before the 11th hour. In Swahili, we say saa kumi, kumi is 10, and then 40 minutes here, dakika arobaini. Or you say saa kumi na moja is kasoro, meaning shy. The 11th hour is shy by 20 minutes. So we've been speaking in the scriptural language. Question is, how did we get this language? How come it's always been there? It's because Zambi put it in us, and it's been passed down in our languages. I can tell you, you're not going to find this type of reading of time outside of Africa. It is native to Africa. All right, I hope you all have been taking notes. Now we're going to get into some discussion. I want to hear your thoughts about days and times as we have discussed. So I'll stop sharing. All right. Welcome, everybody. I see the whole gang here, and I see Brother Nicholas is already saying he wants to make a comment. Let me just welcome everybody, Brother Nick, but I'll come to you. Welcome, Benika. Welcome, Brother Makudi, Nick, Naibu, Vincent, Mama Tuzola, Maroyo Dora, Mama Shelley, and Sister Terian. Welcome. I hope you all jumped in at the right time. If you missed something, I can always go back to a slide and walk you through it. Okay, Nick, go ahead.
Hope everyone is well. Just wanted to make 2 contributions. One, I think the issue of time is also related.
Hey, Nick, we lost your audio. Please come back again. You're saying it's related to what?
Said to the other aspects of creation, like you get to understand that there's animals and the other creations. For example, we know the donkeys bray at a certain time, or the cock crows at a certain time. So there are these animals that can tell time. So when you look at the thing that doesn't make sense is, for example, I think was it Peter who was told, "You'll deny me 3 times when the cock crows." That cock crows a certain time. The cock don't crow at 2, 3 a.m. Cock from 4 a.m. or things like that after daybreak. Or 4 a.m. coming to 6. The donkey is similar to that. So there are other animals that would be able to identify time and season, like the frogs and things like that. And 2, in the Swahili language,
Hold on, Nick. You're breaking up. Hold on. I think you're breaking up a little bit. Okay, come back again. In the Swahili language,
we say nane. Meaning,
we say nane. Oh, Nick, you're breaking up. And I know you have a really good point. So just mute yourself and then unmute yourself. Maybe it will clear out.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was saying, usiku usiku wa manane, meaning like when you say usiku wa manane in Swahili, and when you count the time, what it means like we'd say nane is 8,
Yes.
but the white man's time would be 2 a.m.
Mhm,
But when you count the number of hours from sunset, like from
mhm,
7, but the
mhm,
first hour after sunset would be 7 in
mhm,
our time or in our clocks, but
mhm.
in our natural time would be 1, because we would say it's moja. The first hour after sunset, it's
Yes.
moja. So
Yes.
when you count usiku wa manane, is 8, from the 8th hour. Nane is 8. So you'd also see our counting system
Mhm,
is based on the timing from the sun, from sundown
mhm,
to sunrise.
mhm.
So it's not just having numbers and they don't have
Yeah.
a relation. Similar
Mhm,
to like names. Names have a relation. They go with a certain thing.
mhm,
So you don't just name someone like rock if it does. It must be synonymous to that rock. So you would have
mhm,
a name for Peter.
mhm.
So the same thing with time, because time would be used to tell occasions and feasts. You
Okay.
get, because time would be added up to seasons. You'd be
Mhm,
able to know seasons and also when to go out planting or when to go harvesting or when to leave the house because of
mhm.
animals. You couldn't leave the house that time. They're talking 3 o'clock. Where do you think the lions and the other stray cats would be? They're not like in the supermarket or something. They're out there. And back in the days, there were more animals that there are right now.
Mhm, mhm.
So, so you have to look at time from sunset to sunrise, and the first hour after sunrise is 1,
Uh-huh.
and the first hour after sunset is 1. I
Thank
don't know
you.
if you got that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sharing the screen. Just walk us through that, what you're explaining. So if let's talk about the first hour after sunset. So in East
Yes.
Africa, in Kenya, does the sun usually set around 6, what we call 6 p.m.?
Yes, it would be around 6:30, 6:45, and then
Okay. So
nightfall would start at around
so
7ish.
so when I ask you what time is it, and let's say you say in Swahili, saa moja, you're referring to this one,
Yes.
which is moja, which is what you're
Yes.
saying it's 1 hour either after sunset or 1 hour after sunrise,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes.
And then you said usiku wa manane. Usiku means night. It's from the
Yes.
word siku, which means day. Um,
Yes.
and then nane means 8. So
Yes.
when somebody says usiku wa manane, the phrase means like in the middle of the night. But really, literally, it means during the night at the
Yes.
8th hour.
You're
So
from the
this,
8th hour.
yeah, which is what you would be calling 2 a.m.,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Which is
Yes.
2 a.m., by the way, means 2 after midnight.
Yes.
So, so the evil one corrupted the order of the time and days, and now they're making us count time starting at the middle of the night instead of when the night
Yes.
starts, as
Yes.
well as the middle of the day instead of when the day starts.
Exactly.
All right,
Because you also
finish up.
it's also relating to when you go back to Genesis.
Mhm,
I think the order of creation. So
mhm.
you tend to see there's an order of creation, and it says there was night and day.
Yes, that is what I
You have
covered
to remember back in the time of when it was Adam's time.
Mhm.
Adam didn't have electricity, right? So he
Yes.
didn't have torches or lights or candles, you know. So he wasn't in a situation where he would be working after nightfall. So he would probably even and then he would wake up to some extent when he was out of the garden, that is. So
Okay.
he had to figure out the timing. And see, they are all related. The timing is related to the seasons. You see. So if you get the timing wrong from the word go, you'll also get the calendars wrong.
Yes.
Go, right?
Absolutely.
Then you'd get the feasts wrong.
Yes.
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 Because we tell like we and that's why you find some certain people use the moon to tell their seasons, which is the correct way. And if you look at in African traditions, the feast of the first fruits would happen when a certain season, because some of the plants never change their seasons. Mangoes will produce at a certain time of the year.
Okay.
They will not produce in the middle of the year. So there are plants that tell you when the season is in. So if you see this plant flowering, similar to like when Jesus spoke to that tree and told it, how
The
come you
fig
have,
tree.
but yeah, the fig tree, but you don't have fruit? Because
Yes.
it means it's not out
Season.
of alignment. Yes. So
Yes.
plants will tell you the season. That's when you're able to now take the first fruits, things like that, if it's from harvest, right? So, and then there are animals like the donkey. The donkey brays, and the cock crows at the top of the hour
Wow.
most of the time, but
Yep.
on certain hours. So you'd
Yes.
find the donkey would bray maybe from 3 o'clock at times, 3 in the morning, and 4 in the morning. The cock will crow 6. You'll hear the cock crowing at 6. You'll hear the cock
Yep.
crowing at 4 in the morning or 4 in the
Yep.
afternoon. You'll hear it even during.
Yep.
But if you don't have these animals, you'll not be
Yep.
able to know,
Yep.
and they will tell you it's at the hour's time. They don't crow like at 30 minutes past the hour. Okay. They only cook when it's at the hour. So
At the top
they
of
would,
the hour.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
You know, I think there are other thanks, Nick. Are you done? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
All right. I'll stop sharing this, but thank you so much. That is live information from people on the land, from people who've grown up with these animals around them. I did that too, so I can relate to what you're saying. In fact, some tourists, when they come to Kenya, they get mad because somebody in the neighborhood has that cock or that rooster and it keeps making that noise at exactly 6 a.m. It's an alarm. They just need to lighten up and know it's an alarm to help them wake up. Okay, I think it was Mama Royal daughter first. I'm not sure. Then I think Brother Naibu. Then we'll go to Vincent. Go ahead, Mama Royal daughter. And Amakudi, I see your hand up.
Some questions in the chat before me. I think it was
Okay.
Sister Jan and Brother Benika.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, it's Brother Benika. Yeah, this is why it's helpful, guys. Let's put the Q's and the C's over there. Thank you, Mama Royal daughter, for that correction. Brother Benika, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Bariako family, Babari, nice to see you all. You know, to be honest, I'm very amazed because we are one. As you represent days of the week and the numbers, it's almost the same as in Kikongo, right? It's almost the same. Yeah, I was getting. Yeah, I just got lost, and I wanted you to repeat, but I guess it will take time for me to understand, right? Of course.
I can repeat it. I can share the screen.
Yeah, no, what I wanted to repeat is, I didn't get it properly,
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get it properly because I found it very interesting. When the 2 o'clock, the clock, and I was fascinated. I was amazed when you presented 2 o'clock. Although you were understanding each other, but I was lost, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, because yes, in our time the reality was kind of the same, was different. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah. And if you can just explain one more time, I would appreciate the 2 o'clock, you know, the
Okay.
one we use and the one that is used in East Africa.
Okay.
On how you read the time.
Sure. Sure. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and just walk through that part right now. And it's not just in East Africa. It's, you go to Ethiopia, you'll find they have a similar, they actually have clocks now in most of Ethiopia that look like this clock that I was showing. So let me explain these 2 clocks. I don't know which screen to use. I'll use this one because it has the numbers over here. Okay. So when you ask somebody, what time is it? For example, right now, if I'm using this clock down here, okay, and I ask you what time it is, according to this clock, you will say it's 4:40, right? That's how you'd read it. But you're referring to the 4, saying it's the 4th hour after either midday or after midnight, right? Now, if you go to this clock, assuming it was, maybe I should go to the other clock that was, yeah, let me go to this one to explain the same story. So this one, you would say it's 4 o'clock or the 4th hour after midnight or after midday. We get that. And then you'd say with 40 minutes. Oops, sorry. Now, on this one, you will say it's the 10th hour. Okay? It's the 10th hour because you start counting from down here, not up here. You start counting from down here, and you count 1 all the way 2, 3, 4 until 10th. Say it's the 10th hour. Okay? Notice that this is where you would have a 4. Right? In the clock that most of us use. So if I asked Brother Nick in Kenya, what time is it? And he was looking at this clock, he would say in Swahili, Brother Nick, go ahead and say it.
Saa kumi.
Kumi. Kumi is 10.
10, yeah.
So he's saying it's the 10th hour. And he's saying it's the 10th hour, either after midnight or after, I mean, not midnight, but after sunrise or sunset. So if it is the 10th hour during the daytime, right? That, oops, I'm sorry about that. If it is the 10th hour of the day, not the night, of the day, if you're counting 10 hours, this will end up being what you call 4 p.m. Right? If you're talking about the 10th hour at night, it will be 4 a.m. But in the language of the scriptures, when they say the 10th hour, they are referring to that number there being 10, not being 4. Because this 4 is after midnight or after midday. Zambi didn't tell us to count time starting from midnight or midday. He told us to count time from sunset or sunrise. That's what it is. I hope I made it a bit clearer, Brother Benika. So when you speak to people, like they ask you, what time is it? I look at my clock right like this. Like right now, it is 12:17 here, where I am, okay, in the day. But if you ask me that in Kenya, I would tell you saa sita, the 6th hour, because I know that 12 from the bottom, you know, what we read as 12 midday is 6 hours. It's on the 6th hour. So I'm counting in my mind and I know that is 6, right? It's like I'm doing 12 minus 6 and it tells me it's 6 hours. So we speak and say it is the 6th hour, saa sita ya mchana, or daytime. That's how we speak, whether it's in Swahili or our native languages. And the question is, where did we get this? We were given by Nzambi. We did not learn it in some school. All right, Brother Benika, did you have something else?
Yeah, thank you very much. So do you mean that if 12 midnight, if 12 midday, you say 6,
Yes.
that means 6, what we call
Hour.
6 here? What
No,
PM? Oh, okay, let me say this. So 12 midday, it's 6, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And what we call the 6 p.m. noon, like 6 p.m. You say 12.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
and by the way, we are saying 12 because we are saying it is the 12th hour.
Wow.
So we are saying it's the 12th hour of the daytime, because we started counting when the sun rose, which was around 7 a.m. was the first hour. So when you count the second hour, 8 a.m. and so on, when you get to when the sun was set, it sets at the 12th hour. So we are saying it's the 12th hour when we're referring to 6 p.m. We say saa kumi, which is 12, 10, na mbili. It's the 10 plus 2, 12th hour. That's how we say it.
Well, that's interesting because, Simon Toko was trying to explain that, but people couldn't understand that.
Mm.
Yeah, that's why when you mentioned at 2 o'clock, I was like, mind open, and he explained the same thing you just said. 6 and 12, and there's
Yes.
a reason why the 12.
Yeah, like I'll give you an example. When you see a farmer and they've been working in their field, and then the sun is above their head and the shadow is very short, they know it's the 6th hour of the day, because the sun starts to move from the first hour, it's somewhere here, then it moves to the second hour, to the third hour. By the 6th hour, it's overhead. And by the 12th hour, it's setting, right? That's basically what the clock is telling you. They don't have watches, but they can look in the sky and give an approximation and say, I believe maybe it's the 7th hour of the day or the 8th hour of the day, based on the position of the sun. That is what Brother Nick was saying. That must have been how Adam and all the guys who were operating before us, before they had electronics and a confused clock from the enemy. All right, let me see. Brother Benika, were you finished or did you have another comment? Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you for that question and for the clarification. Okay, I see Sister Terianne. Go ahead, you were next.
Good afternoon, Elder.
Good afternoon.
In terms of clocks, where can we get you mentioned that in Ethiopia they have clocks that can track the time more accurately the way it's described in the scriptures. Are there any such clocks available in the West? That's one question.
Okay.
The second is a comment. In Jamaica, we grew up hearing that rooster in the morning, and I loved it. That's one. I love to hear my rooster. I love to hear him. And third question, I think it's two questions. what does Africa, or in the African nations, is there any concept of this thing called daylight saving time? Do they ever change clocks to accommodate daylight saving time? And when it comes to feast days, what happens to nations below the equator? At what time of the year do you celebrate something like Passover, which is in the spring, and Sukkot, which is in the fall? What happens below the equator? Are you bound by the dictates of the scripture? And yeah, you can argue, but that's tied to the land. But what happens below the equator when it comes to the feast days?
Okay. So with regard to the clocks, you can find some of these clocks even in the West. Like I was Googling yesterday for that image for the Swahili clock, and I found some sites in the US that sell it. So if you were interested in one of those, you can order it from whatever sources that are selling it. If you're not able to find like the Swahili one, I can definitely tell you just look for the Ethiopian one. It's the same numbering. Yeah, but it will take time before it sinks in. You know, it requires a mind shift, but it's especially a mind shift that is helpful when you're reading the scriptures. You know, I don't want to confuse anybody and then they show up to work late because they are following a Swahili clock. You know, it's really mostly helpful in understanding the scriptures. I want to emphasize that, you know, and also in teaching those behind us or those that are around us who do not have this understanding, you know, so that when they read the scriptures, they're clear on, you know, what does the 9th hour mean? If it says in the morning, the 9th hour, then we're talking 3 p.m. You know, that changes everything, you know. So second question about daylight savings time. For those of you, okay, I do not know of a daylight savings application in Africa. I may be wrong, but by daylight savings, for those who are not familiar with it, especially those in Africa, because I have not heard of it, here in the US or in the Northern Hemisphere, let me say, in the Northern Hemisphere, we usually, at this time of the year, we call it fall, right? So we usually adjust the clock, we fall back 1 hour. And then around April, May, we spring forward. So we go with the seasons, we fall back an hour now. So on a certain day, I think it's October or September somewhere, I think it's October, we'll know that we have to fall back 1 hour. So instead of me going to work that day at 7 a.m., you know, I'll really be going, because we'll fall back and now 7 a.m. will really be 6 a.m., you know, so I'll sleep in an extra hour, you could say that. You know, but our clocks will, you know, cell phones, whatever, either you have to adjust it manually or it updates automatically if you have one of those fancy ones, right? In Africa, I'm not aware of daylight savings. I'm not aware of any country that falls back or springs forward. And I think, I may be wrong, if somebody knows better than I do, please correct me. But I think the reason Africa doesn't do that is Africa is the only continent with the 4 hemispheres. Right? So you have the northern, southern, eastern, west hemispheres. Now we do have the different time zones. So like the guys in East Africa, guys in Kenya, it's about 8:30 p.m. or it's the second hour of the night and a half, right? In Joburg, South Africa, Brother Benika, is it about 7:30? Right? So you see they have different time zones. we go to Angola, I think they're like 1 hour after you, Benica, if I'm not wrong.
1 hour before.
1 hour before you.
Yeah.
Okay. So and Sister Terry-Ann, if you look at the Telegram group, right now, the image that I have for that Telegram group is a map of Africa with the different time zones in Africa. All right. So you'll see the countries in green, the others in blue, others in red, and the others in orange. So the guys in Kenya, 7:30, the next one's 8:30, 9:30, 10:30. Those are the 4 different time zones that we have in Africa. But I'm not aware about the daylight savings. All right, the third question, that is the big one. I'm surprised you didn't start with it. What about the feast days? When do they observe the feast days in Africa, especially those who are below the equator? So, yes, there are some feasts which are supposed to be observed in the land. You are right, absolutely, about that. It's specified in the scriptures, for example, the Feast of Booths or Tabernacles, which we covered in a session here. They're supposed to observe it in the land. Now, here's what I have to say about this. I think we seriously, as Isolele, as children of Jacob, we seriously need to look at the calendars that the calendar for feasts that we should be observing. The reason I say that is this. If you look at the calendar that is used, let's say, by the present day people who are in the land called modern Israel, that calendar is based on the northern hemisphere, which is where they are, right? And some feasts will not make a lot of sense because you can't observe those feasts like outside when it's cold season. So either the date is, most likely the date that they have is wrong. I have looked at it a little bit, not completely in full, but one thing that I found was that that calendar, well, not a specific one that I looked at, was based on the sighting of the moons to count time. And that was incorrect because the moon, like we discovered, helps us with seasons. We count time by days. So all in all, I believe the people in Africa, whether you're below the equator or not, they would observe those feasts in the land, and those feasts would line up with their seasons because that's the promised land where the children of Israel are supposed to be. I would recommend, I don't know if Sister Terry-Ann, you've seen, I have seen a very good calendar that I think is very good on the channel for Robert Headley. I'm not promoting any channel, I'm just sharing that I think they've done a good work. They've published on their channel, Black Re-Education. Okay, guys, sorry, I'll be back. Brother Vincent, just go ahead and, sorry, not Brother Vincent, Mama Royal daughter, go ahead, and then I'll be back to wrap up on that issue of the feast days. But my general answer is that, we need to research that and agree on what is the correct calendar for the observation of the feast days. Yeah. And a good starting point, I would say, is that channel for Robert Headley, blackreeducationtv.org. They have a calendar on there that you can download, and it jives and rhymes with the seasons pretty well. I think it's pretty accurate, but I'm not saying it's set in stone. All right. I hope that was helpful,
Thank you.
Sister Terry.
Yes, Thank you.
All right. We've got next Mama Royal Dora. You've been so patient.
That is so important. You know, I grew up as a Sabbath keeper. I grew up as a covenant keeper. So this information I understand. And you know, it was so weird growing up that people used to laugh at me when we started the day at sundown. You know, people thought I was very, very strange. But it's so funny that now that people are coming back to the covenant, a lot of people are the same people that used to laugh at me are coming back to ask me about the times and the seasons. But one of the big reasons, one of the big things, this is one of the reasons that they try to confuse you surrounding the death of Isaiah with the days and the times, because as we know, the Bible says that he died in the 9th hour. But he also died on a Sabbath. But in the biblical sense, there were the 7th-day Sabbath, and there was also what's called a high holy days, which were called Sabbaths as well. So when he died on a Sabbath, which was a high holy day, a Passover. It was Passover. So he literally took the place of the lamb because he died within that time space of the Passover. So now the world uses that and say, oh, he died on Friday. See how they know when the Sabbath is? Conveniently, they know he died on a Friday. But it was not a Friday. It was a Wednesday. It was a high holy Sabbath. So we had 2 Sabbaths in that week. It was the Passover Sabbath and the regular Sabbath. So then they come back and tell you at the scripture in Matthew 28 says, in the end of the Sabbath, as it was about to dawn to the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. So it says at the end of the Sabbath, as it was about to dawn, they came. But when they came, he was already gone. So now they use that conveniently to say it was a Sunday. It was not Sunday yet when they came. It was at the end of the Sabbath. So that means that the sun was setting on what we call a Saturday, a Sabbath day. And when they came, he was already gone. But see, they used the word Sabbath in that case to say it's a Sunday. So they use they conveniently they know that it's a Sabbath is a Friday when they want to say, well, he died on a Friday. And then they said, well, he rose on a Sunday, but the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible say at the end of the Sabbath, when they came, he was already gone. So then he says he would be in the belly of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. So if you add it from Friday to Sunday, it's not 3 days and 3 nights. So understanding the time really gives you an understanding of this scripture here with Christ and his death and his resurrection. Ingita.
Oh, thank you. Yes, absolutely. Very, very, very good. I cannot even add anything to that. You said it very, very well. And remind your friends and family, especially when they're talking about this during what they call Easter. Oh, we're going for Good Friday. He's crucified. Then on Sunday, he has resurrected. No, no, no. Come on. We can count 3 days and 3 nights. He died at the 9th hour, which is 3 p.m. on Friday, if you think it's Friday. Saturday, 3 p.m. is 1 day. He's experienced. Sunday is the 2nd day. It has to be Monday if you're claiming it starts on Friday. we have to wake people up. We have to wake people up. Let me see who is next. Brother Vince, Brother Makudi, go first, then Vincent.
Amari family. I look at this topic. I came in a couple minutes late. I see this topic we're talking about here is time, and the thing that jumps out the most is Africa time, Africa time, Africa time. Everybody talk about this Africa time, and it is the way that it's explained is about how late people come to appointments, be it from the mindset of a diasporan to say you set an appointment with someone on the continent and they don't show up exactly when you expect them to. But I believe that's also a contrast as to where we are about the real Africa time. You see what I'm saying? It's one and the same. Because I was just looking at the laws of thermal energy, and it was talking about isolated system and open systems, right? I would say the way that the world treats the system of time as the open system because of the daylight savings you're just speaking about there, right? Because they move it, but they keep moving it back and forth. But when you talk about the law of the isolated system, the energy is self-contained, right? It's conserved over time. So that's why the internal clock of the earth does not move at all. You see what I'm saying? We are the ones that is being moved. That's why they treat it as an open system when you're looking at thermal energy, right? Because if you know about thermal energy heat gets greater the more you move when it comes to thermal energy, right? It's perpetual. You see what I'm saying? That's why, if you want to look at it this way, we get the summer, and stuff like that. So the other thing I was thinking too is have you ever seen the map where the somebody has I can't remember who showed it, but there was a map with someone was talking about like Embo, the origin and stuff, and they turned the map upside down. You see what I'm saying? And South Africa was the center of the earth, right? So I think that's also pretty indicative of the conversation of the clock itself, right? Meaning, going back to the previous conversation, that the internal clock of the earth has not changed at all, right? Further arguing that it is a isolated system, right? In the thermal, when you're talking about thermal energy. I mean, I don't really have too much to say on this topic, but it is brilliant. I will say this though. 2 nights ago, I was speaking to a friend about the same Genesis 1 there, and we did expand on the evening and the morning there too, El Mutawi. So, it's the spirit is very well connected. Absolutely. I had no idea you were going to speak about this. In fact, I came a few minutes late today. So when I came in, I had a little, had a side neck there, but Asante sana fam. Yes.
Oh, thank you, Brother Makudi. I will say maybe we need to stop those who refer to it as African time. We need to relabel it and call it Bantu time or Isolele time. And that will be the new statement that means we are reading time according to the way the Most High told us to read time. And we are setting days according to the way he set the days. And we drive the conversation. Yes, it's a mind shift, like Mama Matuzola said on the chat. It's a big mind shift, but it's the right one. We have to work against the grain, but it's the right one. I mean, it just makes sense. And it's not Swahili only, it's a Bantu thing. It's an African thing, It's not just amongst the Swahilis. You go to Ethiopia, they're telling time the same way. You go to South Africa, you'll find some people telling time the same way, especially when you go to the rural areas and places like that, or people who've maintained the way we tell time. Before I move on to, I think, Brother Vincent, Sister Terry-Ann, while Brother Vincent is commenting, could you check up for me if you know this, and anybody else can also check it up. When is Passover gonna be celebrated according to the Hebrew calendar for the so-called modern day Israel people? I want to compare that with when it's supposed to be celebrated according to the other calendar I was looking at. Brother Vincent, go ahead, time is given.
Thank you. Evening and morning, everyone else. A couple of points to make. Let me start off with the first one. Could you please bring up the list of the dates, the days of the week, the Swahili? I think there was an error there that I just need to point out before we carry it over. Okay, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up.
Okay.
Give me a second.
All right, as it comes up, just first things first, I think there's been a very miseducation that, all right, let me just start off with this one first. I think there's a problem on the days of the week. I think there's a coping issue because Jumamosi is Saturday.
Yes. Well,
okay. You see where you have the first day, Jumamosi. In the Gregorian, it's Saturday. Okay, like when we say it's Saturday, we are talking about Jumamosi. Then when we're talking about Ijumaa, comes into Friday. Okay. And then the Friday is Ijumaa. Jumamosi is Saturday, and it's the seventh day of the week.
Well, let me explain something. Vincent.
Okay.
Let me explain something. So when I put Jumamosi there, yes, when you talk to people and you ask them what day is it today, like in East Africa or in Kenya, places like that, they say it's Jumamosi, and they're referring to Saturday, right?
Yes.
But then the reason they're referring to it as Jumamosi is because if they were to do it correctly, right?
Yes.
At sunset is when the first day, at sunset on Saturday, is when the first day will start. So the night is the first half, and the first day of the week will end tomorrow on Sunday at sunset. Yes. So that's when Jumamosi is. But during the daylight hours, you're still on Sabato, which is the seventh day. This
Yes.
Ijuma and this Alhamisi, like I mentioned, these are Arabic terms that were introduced during the Arabic slave trade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this
Okay.
should have been Sabato, which was Friday night into, Friday, from Friday sunset to Saturday sunset.
All right. Okay. That's okay, because now what you've done is you've carried to what it should be, and
Yes.
because me, I was looking at it from the literal on the ground. When you say Jumamosi, which day are you talking about?
Saturday. Yes, people think Saturday, and I agree.
People think Saturday.
You're right. People think Saturday, and this is what Mama Matuzola was saying. This needs a mind shift. Even in East Africa, they've mixed us up with the days and with the times.
Yes.
And they're educating us in school. Anyway, carry on.
Sorry, that's the first one. So I think you can close that. Now, the second comment that I wanted to make is we also need, apart from a mind shift on time, we need a mind shift on the Swahili language. For a long time, we've been brainwashed that Swahili is a mixture of Arab and Bantu languages. I don't think so. I think Swahili itself is a language. It's a Bantu language, the way you have the Ndebele as a language, or the Ngoni people as having their language. The Swahili itself was a language, because a Bantu language, there is no way you'll find people. When I grew up, I would find people who are 100 years old. They would use the same word for the table, meza. And these people never went to the coast. They never interacted in any form or manner into the coast, but they would understand when they're talking. When you're talking Swahili, they would understand because it's part of Bantu languages. Okay? So you'd have that issue. So we need to also look at it, and that Bantu is not a mixture of Arab and Bantu language. It's a Bantu language on its own. And then maybe you have it now infiltration and adulteration from other languages like Arabic, and you're saying, because of the slave trade and everything else. That was my second comment. My third comment, sorry, I have quite a number of comments. If you go back to the scripture, and this is a spanner in the works.
Okay.
Genesis, just go back to that chapter where you had opened up Genesis.
Okay.
I just want to highlight something for us to think about, because there is something very inherent about time, which we know and which we have been taking for granted. All right. Okay. Let me just hold it there. Genesis 1:5. Okay. 1:4 says, God saw the light was good and divided the light from the darkness, and God called the light day. Okay. And he called the darkness night. It was evening and morning was the first day. There was no sun at that time. Are you noticing that? Because if you go to Genesis 1:14, what is it? Okay, let me see that.
Here. Sorry. Here, 1:14
and 16. Okay, from 14, 15, and 16.
Yes.
You see that? It talks about now put maybe a farm in the.
Oops. Could you mute and unmute? It's cutting out. Repeat that about Genesis 14. You got cut out.
Genesis 1:16. It's just where you had moved the cursor.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yeah. Yes. I'm at Genesis 1:16. Brother Vincent, we can't hear you. Oh, I think his connection is going bad or something. Oh, let me know if you. I can't hear you, Vincent. Okay. Well, I'm waiting for Vincent to come back. This is actually a point that I think it might be the same thing he was emphasizing here. The thing that I noticed that I didn't mention was that between day 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay, before day 4, we don't have the sun and we don't have the moon and the stars, because we're told these are the lights, okay? The greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. So what does it mean then if we did not have the sun, for starters? If we did not have the sun on the previous 3 days, day 1, 2, and 3, it means that when we talk about time, when we say, for example, I think the Earth is X years old, it means we started measuring on day 4, when we had the tool called the sun that helps us measure time. Because before that, we didn't have the sun, so we couldn't measure time. We could only estimate based on the fact that Nzambi told us it was the first day, it was the second day, it was the third day. So if we equate a day to whatever number of years, we are estimating based on what Nzambi is telling us, because you cannot measure if you don't have a tool to measure whatever it is that you're measuring. And the tool is the sun to measure time. And it was given on the 4th day. Brother Vincent, are you back? Go ahead, and I was trying to maybe explain what you might have been wanting to explain.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know. My network has just decided, but anyway, thank the Most High. So now the point that I was bringing across, apart from what you're saying, is so in the Most High has put the measure of time within us. That's why if you take that cockerel, you move it from Kingston, okay, and you take it to the village area, or you move it from the village to the capital city, it doesn't know where it is now, and you cover it in a box. At 6 a.m., it will crow. You know, because the time is inherent in it.
Yes.
The time, that marker of time. So so it's not an issue of as you're saying here, like now when you're being given as a fixed time for us to be able to use and measure in 1, 14, 15, 16, but already that element of the time had been input by the Most High within from the very beginning. That's why you can be able to wake up at 3 a.m. in the night without an alarm clock if you're used to praying or you're sensitive to the Spirit.
Yes.
Without having somebody to come and wake you up and tell you it's 3 a.m. Wake up now, you need to spend some time in prayer or something. Okay? Or whatever time it is. It is because the time has been put in. And that's why when when Yeshua said, you look at the sky and you look at the seasons to know. Okay?
Yes.
So you're not just waiting for the rains, then you know it's which season. There's also something that the same way in the spirit realm, you can be able to know this is what is happening in the spirit realm at this time. You're not having the sun to change for you to say. It is already there's something in that tells you this is happening. So you're there's sensitivity to the spirit. All right.
Yes.
So that is on that one. Now the element that the last element that was brought out, and I think it is very critical, is the one that was just brought out when we're talking about the crucifixion. We're talking about the Passover, the high Sabbath. You see, all these things are things that we've been lied to and we've lost. If we don't comprehend the high Sabbath, and then we can't comprehend the Sabbath, then so these things will not make sense when we don't understand the way time was being counted, the way they were looking at the way that view of time, you know. So because I think it is a critical element, we need to be able to look at it, because it will also come in to now when you begin talking about like what you bring around the issue of the seasons when you're either up or down. Remember.
Oops, it's you're breaking up, breaking in and out again. As you get back connected, and just feel free to speak when you get back connected, Vincent. But while you're doing that, I highlighted here on verse 14, the lights that divide day from the night, right? And these lights include the stars as well, because it says here, the great lights, one to rule the day, that's the sun, to rule the night, that's the moon, and then he made the stars also. All these are these lights. He says they are for signs. Now, if you've ever looked for a sign, Like if you're driving and you're going somewhere you don't know, you look for a sign and you read the sign and it gives you direction. That's what a sign does. It gives you direction or it gives you information. Maybe it says the road is slippery or it has ice, so you slow down. Or it says, if you're going north, this is north, you go left, or whatever the direction is. So the stars, these lights, the sun, the moon, the stars, one of these or some of these, like the moon and the sign and the stars, they give us signs. Think about when the wise men looked at the stars to determine where Yesiah had been born. The stars were functioning as signs for them, right? When you see in Revelation and it talks about, and the moon will get blackened and things like that, these are signs, right? So when people study astrology and they use it like those wise men mentioned in the scriptures, they're using it to read the signs. That's the purpose. It's not witchcraft unless they're doing other things with it, for the wrong reasons, but it's not necessarily witchcraft. Brother Vincent, finish up. I'm going to stop sharing and then finish up if you're back. You've gotten cut out. Oops, I think he is reconnecting. Okay, Brother Vincent, can you hear me? Okay, not yet. All right. Let me see. I think there was a question here. Okay, Mama Matuzola, I come to you. I see you made some comments there. All right, Sister Terry Ann, you mentioned that Passover is on Monday evening starting April 22nd. So it's around April time, according to the generally accepted Hebrew calendar. Thank you. Thank you for that information. Now, compare this with that. So around April is when the generally accepted Hebrew calendar says Passover is. According to the calendar that Robert Headley and his team have developed, Passover is on Monday, October 2nd, right? Two very different seasons. One is saying in spring, which is around April, and another one is saying it's fall, October 2nd. Both cannot be right. Both cannot be right. And this is why we should diligently validate or invalidate or investigate all these calendars that are being proposed out there. One thing that I liked about Robert Headley's calendar, and I'm not necessarily advocating for it, is that if, let's say, you were born on a Monday, okay? Your birthday day will always remain on a Monday. With the current calendar that we use, if this year you celebrated your birthday on a Monday, next year it will be probably on a Tuesday, and the following year, Wednesday. Same thing with festivals. They tend to always move and shift around. I don't think that's God's order. I think God is a God of, and Zambia is a Zambia of order. But anyway, thanks for that input. Let's investigate these calendars. Let's share, let's find out, let's investigate them, let's research them. And if we think we've come across one that we think is good and we can agree on it, let's share the word so that we navigate to the right direction. Okay, another new message. Wow, people are just firing. Nicholas has a comment, but Mama Matuzola, did you want to say something? I've seen a few posts you had in here. One is so funny. Brother Makudi asked.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I
Go
was
ahead.
just laughing when I didn't have. That was my comment when I heard the brother speaking about the signs and making reference to the cock crowing to tell the people what, you know, what time it was. And even if you move that animal to another part of the world and put him in a box, because that animal is acclimated, he's still gonna know he gonna crow at the same time. And I was just laughing because I was reading a storybook with my babies in, and in the storybook it said, it told them, cocks do not crow in the morning. They crow anytime they want to. So I was saying these contradictions are deliberately taught to move you away from, you know, the things that the Nzambi gave us to identify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good one. That is correct. They will try and change the story, but you know, yeah, it's not right. Brother Makudi, you were asking a question. Given that we must adhere to the reconfiguration of our minds to this system, does the clock of Africa have a PM, which means past midday, considering that evening and morning ushers in the new day? No, the clocks do not have a PM or an AM. What the clocks do is they just tell you the hour, but you need the sun to determine whether it's morning or night, whether it's AM or PM. Realize, Brother Makudi, that AM after midnight and PM past midday is an invention, okay, of man. They're using that invention to determine when to start counting the hours. But Nzambi said, no, you don't need an AM or a PM. You need the sun. When the sun sets, you start counting your day, your night hours. When the sun rises, you start counting your daytime hours. So all you gotta do is look outside to determine, are you in the morning or are you in the evening? Are you in daytime or are you in nighttime? You gotta use the tool given by Nzambi, that's the sun. So the clock doesn't have an AM or PM. We just say it is the 10th hour of the day, or it is the 10th hour of the night, because the night and the day are based on the sun, and that is a tool given. Ngeta. All right. Mama, daughter, you posted something in First Chronicles, chapter 12, verse 32. And of the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do, the heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their commandment. Okay, which were men that had understanding of the times. Okay, I'm guessing they had read the signs and things like that. Amen. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy your Sabbath. Enjoy your Jumamosi, whichever day you're in, wherever you are. Thank you for joining. Really, really appreciate everybody's time.